Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. A single 31-year-old woman in Grand Rapids, Michigan is now facing a civil rights complaint and lawsuit for violating the Michigan Fair Housing Act. Her crime? She advertised for a Christian roommate. The woman's name has not been released, but her case has been turned over to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. According to the fair housing people, the ad expressed an illegal preference for a Christian roommate, thereby excluding people of other faiths. It's hard to know how best to respond to something this ludicrous. I first had to get my fury under control. When you're looking for a roommate, you're looking for someone with whom you can live, someone with whom you can be compatible in such a par-for situation, someone with whom you can comfortably coexist. And it's a much more comfortable situation when your roommate shares your values, your concerns, even your faith. However, these are not even the most absurd facts about this case. It gets even more bizarre. The Christian lady did not post her ad in the local newspaper where she might possibly offend witches, Wiccans, Muslims, Buddhists, Zoroastrians, Hindus, Jews, et al. Ad nauseum. She placed her advertisement on the bulletin board at her own church, a Christian church where she expected to find like-minded Christians gathered to worship. Did you get that? She posted her ad on a church bulletin board where any rational person would expect that it would be Christians that would see it. You know, my first question is, what kind of a church member would turn a private ad on the bulletin board into the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan? If I were this woman, I would think about finding another church. This unfortunate betrayal started a chain of unfair and disastrous events for a young Christian woman who only wanted to have someone share her house. She made the mistake of thinking it was only logical if her new roommate also shared her concerns, interests, and faith. Not so, according to the executive director of the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan. It's a violation to make, print, or publish a discriminatory statement. There are no exemptions to that. In other words, such intolerance will not be tolerated. Director Nancy Haynes tried to make her case by saying, if you read it and were not a Christian, would you feel not welcome to rent there? Well, since the young woman advertised for a Christian roommate, it's safe to assume she probably prays before meals, reads her Bible, likely goes to church and hangs out with other Christians. If you're not a Christian, why would you want to rent there? This is typical of the old liberal idea that you can force people to associate with people with whom they do not wish to associate, especially in such an intimate atmosphere as your home. The idea that one cannot advertise for a compatible roommate is too ridiculous to contemplate, which is apparently why Michigan's Fair Housing Act does make at least a few exceptions for roommates. It says that a renter is entitled to screen prospective applicants when it comes to gender or ability to pay. But nothing can be specified as to what religion the prospect may or may not have. As a consequence of simply advertising for a Christian roommate on a private church bulletin board, this young woman is now facing hundreds of dollars in fines and enforced attendance at a government-mandated fair housing training seminar. That's another way of saying government re-education center to teach her how to be more tolerant of others. Listen, folks, this is beginning to sound more like a dictatorship than the United States I grew up in. That's why we have to vote imbecilic laws like this one off the books, and the imbecilic legislators who passed it out of office. Let's face it, This is an example of the kind of idiotic and un-American legislation that has been passed by the liberal elites while we Christians have slept through the election process. It's time to wake up.
You've been watching the Hal Lindsey Report. To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470-470, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74147. You can also support this ministry online. Visit hallindsey.com or call 1-888-RAPTURE.